What's up guys, Enrique here with another video, and today we are going to be covering up, or I guess covering the Launchpad, not covering it up, maybe I'll cover it up a little bit because these LEDs are kind of bright, tripping the camera out. But we're going to be talking about how to use Launchpad with Ableton and kind of more tailored towards being a DJ, because there's a lot of functions on the Launchpad itself, especially a lot of functions within Ableton itself when it comes to using it to DJ. So let's start off with basically what a Launchpad is. In case some of you guys here are new to the world of Launchpads and whatnot, if basically what the Launchpad is the it's going to be sending MIDI data between the device itself and, in this case, our computer, which has Ableton open. And why this is so important is because instead of having all these clips and samples and loops and stems and whatnot on our computer, it almost kind of takes those and allows us to have access to them here on the Launchpad. But it's very important to know that no sounds or any kind of stems or music actually comes from within the Launchpad. All this is doing is creating a tactile surface and a way to kind of play Ableton's clips with your hands, which is a lot easier than just kind of mousing around on your laptop. And with the Launchpad, you also have a ton of other stuff, like within the mixer controls, like you can control the volume of specific things and like take things down and kind of, ramp them up. You have controls over your pans, like if you want to make things go left or right, you can kind of see the controls on the computer right here, for example, on track 7. As I move this around, you can see it there, kind of going back and forth. Let's go ahead and put that back in the center. You have sends. Sends are basically effects. You have a ton of control over Ableton right here on the device. And on top of that, you also have these 2 user modes, which are pretty unique in the way that they work, because you can have them be mapped to different things as well. So if I were to go to user 2, which right now is blank, or no lights are on, but it's actually on, and I go over to track 2 inside of Ableton, we can see that I have an EQ3 up on the screen, right? So I have my low, my mid, and my highs. So this is just one of the many effects that Ableton has, but I've actually mapped that to be here on the Launchpad itself. So as I slide my finger around, I can take control of this, right? And this is, my user 2 page is basically like my DJ blending page. And here I have basically track 1 on these top 4 rows and then track 2 on these bottom 4 rows. So when the 2 tracks are playing together, I can kind of DJ them and mix them together. But we'll cover that in a little bit. But the point I'm trying to get across here is, because you have these 2 user modes, you can kind of map them to do whatever you want. You can have these be individual clips or one-shots that you always need, or basically different values, either from 1 to 8 different values or 1 to 4 different values in the case of user page 1. So like if I jump over to another effect here, like let's say, which one is it? This guy. I have control over, oh, it's not this one. It's the drum one. There we go. I have control over different parameters inside of this device as well. So you can see here I'm changing things. Of course, they're just on and off, but I actually have 4 stages, because this user page 1, basically it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way up to 32, and then it comes down to here, and this is 33, 34, 35, 36, all the way up to 64. So user 2 goes all the way across, and user 1 just goes halfway up and then halfway up on the other side. User 1 is very, very useful when you're using things like drum rack within Ableton. You can kind of, have a better eye of what you're actually using or doing within Ableton on here in a drum rack, because it's kind of set up in a similar fashion. Looking at our session side, basically if we look onto the screen, I can scroll around and look into my session corresponding with that red square that's on my session button right here. And this is useful, especially when things are color-coded. The Launchpad, this one here, Launchpad and Launchpad Pro, both have RGB LEDs, so we can actually map and color code our tracks to be the same color as they are on the Launchpad. For example, if I wanted this to be let's say red, right? I can go and select these two clips, right click them and set them to red, and boom, you can see that they've changed here, nice and red. We have our kind of fuchsia, a pumpernickel, a grass green, maybe a needs to be watered grass green, and a sunny yellow. There's a ton of colors you can get out of the RGB LEDs. There's, I forget the number, but it's crazy how many actual colors you create out of this thing, which is also really cool, especially when it goes into the Vegas mode and you have all the fireworks going and whatnot. But anyway, let's get into kind of some of the ways that the Launchpad actually works within Ableton. So by default right now, nothing's playing, but I can launch clips. And what launching clips means is within Ableton, you can see the clips that I have here. I can just go ahead and do exactly that. If I press one of these lit up buttons, that means that there's information on this pad. Boom, right? Throw the kick drum part in there. So these are two individual clips that have, here, let's turn that volume down. These are two individual clips that basically have information on them, right? So with that information, we have one without the kick and then one with the kick. And you can see that there's almost like a delay, if you want to call it that, in launching the clip, but it's not really that. What it's doing is it's quantizing my launching, or basically preventing me from launching a clip out of time or out of sync. So in that way, it kind of helps you stay on time, and within the space of music, it kind of keeps you on the one, right? It'll wait until the end of the bar in order to launch the next clip. And in that same manner, if one of these is launched, I can launch an empty one to stop that clip. Cool. The cool thing here is with the Launchpad, we have this over here, which is our scene launch. So if I press one of these, let's say this one, hopefully it sounds good, it'll launch that entire row. Or let's say this one, right? Go back to our user one, turn off our effects on the drums. Maybe we want to just turn this off. Right, go to this clip. Easy, right? So because it's kind of launching these clips in time and on time for me, I can easily keep track of what I'm doing and kind of just jam around on here and hit record in Ableton and record a song if I really wanted to. But that's not what we want to do today. Today what we want to do is use the Launchpad as if we were DJing tracks. So because of that, over here, you can see on Ableton itself, track 1, also due to potential copyright infringement, we're not going to be using any actual music because the threshold can be set pretty low and we may be taken off the air. So we've gone ahead and used a couple clips here that come with the 4 gigs of loop masters that you get. Actually, everything that we've been hearing is from that same 4 gigs of loop masters, which is what you get if you buy a Launchpad. And if you have a Launchpad and you don't have those 4 gigs, head over to the website and get them because it's still free whether you bought it now, today, last year, or the year before that. Just go and register your product and you can get them for free. So we have this loop here, right? So let's say I'm playing, I'm DJing, cool, and this is one part of the track that I really, really like. So then I can switch it up to this track where there's no kick drum. It'll kind of assist me in mixing. If I go to my user 2 page, track 1's up here. I have my volume, I have my highs, my mids, and then my bass. I can bring in just the highs, just the mids, or just the bass, right? So same goes here, but it's kind of mirrored the way I set it up. But the cool thing here is you can set this up however you want. So this is track 1, this is track 2. Bass, bass, mid, mid, high, high, level, level. So I can kind of, in a sense, understand how it goes on a pattern base. So watch this. I'm going to launch this clip again, and I'm going to turn down track 2, but it's not launched yet. So then I can launch it now, and we don't hear it because the volume's theoretically down, especially if we look over here into the mixer. If we click on that track, you can see that our levels are still up. I'll open up just the mids and start bringing in that track. right? And I can start lowering track 1. Boom, seamless. And again, because Ableton is smart in the way that it helps you launch clips in time and warps tracks, I don't have to worry about beat matching or anything like that. This will keep me in the creative zone and keep my hands moving in a sense of making this a more dynamic set as opposed to just kind of playing a track. Because then once this is going, you know, I can start mapping these things to different effects within here, or I can just start playing whatever I got going on here, right? And then again, I have another part of this track that I really like without the kick. But let's say this is an actual song. You can set this up to be individual clips of that song and have it be different parts of the song. So you can have the breakdown here, the intro there, the first part here, the drop, the outro, and you can kind of color code these and work down in your set and see how things are going. But watch this. I have this here, and I have a one shot over here, this guy. Right? So then it kind of fades out. If I wanted to do something cool, I can launch these two together and stop this one, right? And then kind of make a 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can kind of like start almost live remixing your track in a cool way, or start throwing in one shots or other loops from other songs. Like this was a hip hop beat that I made earlier. Right now our tempo is at, what is it, 120? Because it's at 120, I can start throwing in some random stuff. Let's try some of these like weirder hip hop drums. Hey, that's kind of tight. Let's see, what else I got on here? These are a bunch of different effects that I've already mapped up on here. This is hilarious. So that's kind of like one thing that works really well. And the other thing that's kind of cool is, sure, I went ahead and mapped this to be the overall volume of that track, but by default, if I hit mixer mode, we have control over here along the side of different things like the mixer volume of each individual track. So I can again raise something, lower it, or this funny little drum beat that we got going on, like watch, we'll launch this again. We'll just hear this one. I can say, oh, I just launched the entire scene. I can say, start bringing that in. Right, start fading out of this. Now we're in like live remix territory, because these are always my DJ tracks, and this is kind of like my one-shot weird whatever's going on. Let's see. Oh, then I'll take this one, yeah, and I'll say lower everything except the lows, the bass, and we can start bringing that in. Where are we at? I'll say, there it is, and then go back to mixer, start getting out of that remix territory and start bringing it back into the DJ world. Then we still got this little bongo bell thing going on. Stop that one. Stop these two. Stop the drums. And it's kind of a fun way to stay in this weird evolving world of kind of a hybrid DJ set as well as a hybrid live set. And I've seen a lot of people actually take tracks that they really like to play, and you can warp them and have them be loops that you really like, but then have music that they've made on this half and start, you know, blending between what you made, your own personal touch, your own personal sound and style, and jumping back and forth between that and what music actually exists today. And being able to kind of keep everything moving within Ableton is really, really fun. and really, really awesome. For example, I would never have thought to turn my wannabe hip-hop beat into this weird kind of house remix thing that we got going on here at 120 BPM. But with all that aside, you know, we can take control of different devices in a multitude of different ways. Like I was mentioning earlier, when this is different setups of different effects, whether it be user 1 or user 2, it's really simple to map this to be different things. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. Let me launch one of these clips that isn't too annoying when repeated over and over again. That one's not gonna work. Okay, that'll work, cool. So if I go and I look at this track, right, which is this one here, you can see that the volume is up, so it's playing. I'm gonna throw on an EQ audio effects rack. So let's say performance and DJ tools. Hopefully this is something good. Motion, high pass, cool, this will work. So this is how easy it is to map on the Launchpad. I've already have some stuff mapped here, but I'm gonna go ahead and just map over them. If I hit Command and M on my laptop, or if I just go up into here and I say, where is it at? Edit Midi Map. Editing the Midi Map is basically gonna say, anytime I click on a parameter within Ableton and I touch a button here, that parameter is now assigned to this thing. This is really important, and you can go down a deep rabbit hole when it comes to automating and changing the way that your setup works. I've seen people take a Goodwill secondhand keyboard, rip everything off of it, and only have like 6 buttons or keys on there and map those to be very specific things within Ableton. But in this case, we have this Launchpad. I'm not going to rip anything off of it, and we're going to keep this as it is. But check this out. Looking at the DJ Tools Audio Effect Rack, if I want to add motion, I'll click motion. You can see the little bracket is right around it. And on the Launchpad, I'll say from here to here. Now, if I hit Command M, or again, get out of the MIDI map, this row is now controlling the motion of my audio effects rack. Super simple. Took me 2 seconds to do that. You want to do all of them? Easy. Go boom, boom, maybe here, boom, boom. And just one by one, there are 8 effects racks there, or there's 8 parameters that I can affect on the computer, and then we have 8 columns or rows or aisles, whatever you want to call them here on the Launchpad. They'll easily correspond to whatever they need to be. The cool thing though is I can go and say, all right, these last 2, I don't want to affect the rack dry wet or the rack volume. I can just take these last 2 rows here and map them to be something else. For example, send A and send B of this same track. Now with that track playing back, let's launch that clip. Go to user 2. Let me turn my dry rack up. Now we have our motion. Right, we have our reverb of our sends, our delay, which will be affected by our motion. The rate, we can change the shape. Well, that's kind of cool. What shape is that? There it is. Scratch, no idea what that effect does. High pass, take our motion down. Or just clear it out, boom. We always know that this one over here is gonna be 0. So again, you can take stuff and send it. The cool thing here though, if we were recording this set, all this automation would be recorded into the arrangement window, which is this window here, which is where we're basically gonna end up recording our set or our song or our live jam. Thankfully with Ableton, it's really cool. Basically, if you were to set up your Launchpad to DJ, you've basically set up your Launchpad to also create your own music at the same time, because you can create these clips and create these different parts of the song and play through them as if you were DJing, taking the lows out and whatnot, and it's gonna give you a lot more of that humanistic feel in the moment, and you can hit record and capture all this automation right there on the spot, which is really, really fun to do. Personally, it's one of the ways that I enjoy making music the most, is not so much clicking around, but actually just jamming and feeling it out as I go. So with the Launchpad, I basically can take control of a lot of those effects. And again, I can even say maybe this one random one shot right here, right? We're back in the MIDI editing mode. I can click the play button on it and say this button here, if we look at that, is now mapped D sharp 6. So now if I press that, it's going to launch that one shot. You can see that it doesn't have this little counter, it just has numbers going down. And once it reaches the end, it'll stop playing. So watch, I'll launch that again. We can say, go. Easy. All right, go back to our session. Maybe launch that one part with the kick drum. Maybe turn that volume up. You can see here I have two things mapped to the same thing, which again could be a plus. In this case, it's not. We still got this song. Go back to our user 2. So on top of this, right, we have a bunch of things like this, and you can see that I've gone ahead and mapped, for example, these two bottom rows to be the sends. You don't have to do this for every channel though. In the mixer, if you hit mixer, there's a small amount of text over here on the right hand side which applies to every track that you're currently looking at. And the cool thing is, if I scroll, I'm now looking at more tracks than the Launchpad has rows. So sure, here we're at 1 through 8, but if I go all the way over, we're now looking at, I believe it's going to be 8 through 15. If I had more, it'll keep going. It'll just keep going. And because you can keep everything color-coded, you'll always know exactly where you're at in the track, or in your set. But because of that, I can say, cool, go to sends, and you can see that one thing I have mapped here is already there. So if I press play, and let's go ahead and launch this, and let's launch this. So this is this track, this column. If I go to mixer, send A, right, or send B. You can hear a delay. And again, this will all be recorded. So again, you're just kind of jamming, doing your thing, kind of feeling out how you want the track to go. Just make sure you hit record and you can capture all that like in a heartbeat. But with that, I hope we've answered a lot of questions that you may have. On to the Q&A part. Let's chat and see what questions we got in the comments. All right, one question we got in is a Launchpad a good complement to Launch Key? That is one suggestion I cannot suggest enough. Seriously, like, trust me, if you don't map anything in user 1 or user 2, this will play notes, right? It'll play the keys of whatever synth you are. But if you have your own keyboard, you can stay here. And I can go mixer, record arm, and I want to record, I don't know, on these two tracks. In session, you can see that they're now red. If I hit this, they're going to start recording. Oh, of course, I got to record arm them, but I have them kind of turned off over here. It's some internal settings. Basically, if I were to hit record here, I can then launch my clip, play my keys, launch another clip, and stop the recording of this one and kind of keep moving. It's a great extension to your keys because you have your whole session as a whole and you can jump through a bunch of different parts here on the Launchpad while still always having access to your keys. And on top of that, if you get something like the 49, you got the faders, or the 25, you got knobs to then map to a bunch of other stuff. So yes, the Launchpad connected to a launch key to the same computer is super duper awesome. Another question that we have is, can you change the tempo on Launchpad for live sets? Great question. I've done it before, and the way you do it is if I go to my MIDI mappings here, right? So we'll say options, edit MIDI map, and we look at the tempo. It's cut in half. There's a left side and a right side. This is also nudge, in case you are wondering. And what nudge does is it temporarily slows down your track and temporarily speeds up your track as if you're DJing. But watch this. If I click this, I'm now editing the map for the left side. I can say this one, this button. We're not just stuck to the grid. We can map these over here. So then I say this one. So now I have this one mapped to go down in tempo and this one to go up in tempo. So watch, I go to Edit Midi Map, we're out of it. If I press this, it starts, oh, no. Okay, that's not the one. I figured this out once before. It's doable. It's definitely doable. I just haven't done it in a really long time. There's basically a setting. There's a. Let me see if I can figure this out. I know we don't want to be here all day watching me try to figure out nothing. That's boring. There's a way to set basically whether it's going to be incremental or a toggle switch. In the case of it right now, it's set to a toggle, but you can set it that every time I press it, it increases by X amount. And I'm pretty sure it's in the preferences somewhere, but I have done it before. So to answer your question, short, yes, but can I do it right now in front of your eyes? No, sorry about that. Another question, any more questions? No, cool. Anyway, Launchpad's here, it's $149.99. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, checking it out. I'm glad you guys can join us as you guys do all the time. And yeah, any more questions, leave them down in the comments. We'll get back to them whenever we can. And for more information on the Launchpad, be sure to check out novationmusic.com. And yeah, I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.